Trump campaign. And William, at the moment, there are still mathematical pathways for both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris to work their way to 270 electoral votes. But what are you hearing from the Trump campaign, and what kind of contrast do you expect to see where you are?
Jeff, I think the mathematics, as you state them, are exactly accurate. The Trump campaign is arguing that all of those math problems are going to fall in their favor. I just had a conversation with Tim Murtaugh, who's a senior campaign aide with the Trump team, and he believes that there is virtually a certainty that the Trump campaign is going to get through all of the blue wall states that Harris is so desperately wanting to hold on to. And he was arguing, I said to him, I said, given that the polls were so tight all along, how is that possible? How do you explain that? And his theory of the game is that voters saw over this election two very clear administrations. They had a memory of the Trump administration, and they saw the Biden administration, and that the voters' memories of the Trump economy and the border were all favorable in the Republican Party, and on those two factors were all negative for the Democrats. And he said that everything else, he said even the issue of abortion, which was obviously so critical to Democrats' belief that they would do better, all of that fell by the wayside. He said that all those other issues after the economy and immigration simply were not nearly as potent. And he thinks they are very, very confident that this will be an overwhelming victory for tonight. We understand also that Donald Trump is en route here. The word has gotten out in the crowd so that everyone in this room that was usually split, half the room that way, half the room behind me, nearly everyone has moved to the front of the room anticipating that Donald Trump will be coming here. The mood here is as on fire as it has been all night long.
And William, there's a bit of news that we can share, and we should say that while some of the other TV networks have called the state of Georgia for Donald Trump, the Associated Press has not. And I'm going to read here directly from my computer because this is important. It says, Donald Trump, this is from the Associated Press, Donald Trump is leading in Georgia, but the AP decision team still sees a path, albeit a very narrow one, for Kamala Harris to take the lead in the state. Harris is bettering Trump in the votes cast before Election Day, and there are still potentially enough of those kinds of votes left to be counted to push her ahead of the former president. The race is still too early to call. Realizing you're just learning of this as I'm reading it to you, how does that color or change at all some of what you're hearing from the Trump campaign?
Well, it's funny, Jeff, because someone from the Trump campaign, I would say 45 minutes to an hour ago, said not only was it time to call North Carolina, this was just after the AP had, but they said Georgia had as well. Again, I think that the mathematics are probably right. There might still be enough votes to eke out a victory for Harris, as there similarly may be in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, etc. But the Trump campaign believes that their analysis of exit polls and turnout proved to them internally that that's their state, that they will take Georgia. So again, it may be accurate what you're repeating, but the Trump campaign is completely confident that that will fall into their camp very soon.
William Brigham, thanks to you.
Let's head over to Lisa Desjardins for a closer look at what we were just sharing there from the Associated Press. Lisa, they maintain there's a narrow, albeit, or rather a possible narrow potential there for Vice President Harris. Walk us through it.
That's the key. As we've explained, if a state has not been called, it means the Associated Press thinks there is a way for either candidate to still win. And as they say, there's a narrow path for Kamala Harris. Let's explain what that is. Mainly the communities around Atlanta. Let's look at this. Fulton County, the largest vote total that Kamala Harris will probably get tonight in the state. 91% of the expected vote. So there's still almost 10% left. And this is a factor in the math that the AP is doing. It's not just that there's only 9% left. It's that she has such a huge margin there. So that 9%, that's thousands of votes right there. Now, how about all this other counties around here? DeKalb County, also 88%, another huge margin for Harris. We talked early in the night. For those of you who stayed with us, this is going to be a small payoff. Early in the night, we talked about this area right here, the Georgia Low Country, Savannah. Chatham County, look at that. This is the county that actually has the least amount reported right now, 80%, still 20% left to go, and Harris does have a very strong lead down there. She really has to get all of the remaining votes, a very large percentage of the remaining votes in these places. But this is why the Associated Press has not called this state yet. And just taking a quick look around other states that are out, the blue wall, if the Trump campaign is saying they can win it, let's see what's going on. We see here that we are getting more and more results around Philadelphia County. Look at that margin that Harris has, enormous margin, but we're now at 78% coming in here. And to give you a sense of Philadelphia County in the past, where Harris is compared to the past, hold on, let me get the right button. Look at this. So right now, she is behind where Biden was in Philadelphia, which was also behind where Clinton was. That's not where they want to be. She needs to do better than this with the remaining vote in Philadelphia in order to do well here in Pennsylvania. I've also noticed that this swing county, Erie, we pay a lot of attention there. With 98% reporting Trump is winning there. He's managed to also, at the moment, with 97%, really run up the total in Lancaster. And let's look what's going on in Chester County and compare it to the past. Important suburb county. Here we go, Harris, right in between Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. And there's one more. Our producer, Matt Loffman, is reminding me of another good one to look at. Northampton County right here. This is a critical swing county, and right now, the Trump campaign must be delighted to be winning here. This is a place where it has swung back and forth. Look at that. Joe Biden was able to flip it, and now Donald Trump is within reach of flipping it with 98%. So you can see some of these suburban eastern counties, the Trump campaign did well. I know you have been talking about what happened here, but from my reporting with the Trump campaign, Chris LaCivita took a risk with a turnout campaign plan, the Trump Force 47, that a lot of folks thought might not work. It was not a coordinated campaign, but they've gotten their voters out. Is that Trump himself, or is that their ground game? We're going to spend a lot of time talking about it, whether he wins or loses. They're doing well in a lot of these counties, better than expected.
Lisa Desjardins, thanks so much. Amy Walter, we have about 90 seconds. I'm going to interrupt you, and then we're going to pick up your thought on the other side.
How about we do that?
As William and Lisa were talking, you were squarely in their amen corner, shaking your head in agreement with what they were saying. What are you seeing that tracks with that?
Well, if we can have time, I don't know if we do, to put up just to get to this point about I think it was what William said that the Trump campaign was talking about, the contrast between the two administrations. And I think this is really another key element in this race. Biden's job approval rating overall, 43%. Trump's retrospective job approval rating, 50%. And so if you do make the case that, okay, do you want to stay the course or change direction? We think a lot about the fact that, well, Donald Trump wasn't particularly popular. He still is underwater in his favorable rating. But on the question of who do you trust on the economy, Trump has an 8-point advantage. Who do you think did a better job as president? Trump has the advantage. And that again, was the theory of the case that the Trump campaign had, that all of the other stuff about him that people didn't like would be overcome by the frustration that they have with the status quo.
We are winding our way to 1 a.m. Eastern, and we're going to take a quick break, let our audience know that a few West Coast stations may cut away for local news races, but we're going to continue our coverage here. So here I am again, Amy Walter.
Wow, so here I thought
I'm Maya Trabulsi. Next on our live KPBS presidential election special, we are watching the results coming in from across San Diego County. And we have reporters at local Democratic and Republican watch parties, the county registrar of voters, and here in the newsroom. Plus, political analysis on the top local, state, and national races. It all starts here on KPBS at 10 p.m.
Honor our veterans with KPBS.
He grabbed me and was like, "I got you, Sergeant." And he carried me to the chopper.
Join us for a week of films by and about those who served.
I still hold a lot of guilt, because, why did I come back?
Revealing their heartbreaking struggles, exhilarating triumphs, and unique experiences.
When I got to Vietnam, I was a 19-year-old kid. I left Vietnam as a 20-year-old man.
Military Stories Week, starting Monday on KPBS.
It's known as America's finest city. Sand, surf, and superb weather attract people from around the world. But we're not the first to enjoy it here. San Diego has more biodiversity than any county in the continental U.S. Humans have transformed San Diego's wild landscapes. But life here always finds a way. Because San Diego isn't just America's finest city. It's also America's wildest.
Watch live or stream Wednesday at 8 on KPBS.
Today's the day.
You're home.
It's a celebration.
Here we go. No one can say I don't have accomplished daughters.
We need more fun in our family.
It's just like a real blessing.
Look at this spread.
That's good.
Your heart gets so full that you think it's gonna burst.
San Diego votes in a historic election. I'm Maya Trabulsi.
And I'm Amita Sharma. Join KPBS for trusted, accurate election coverage with all the latest results and in-depth analysis of the key local races and top issues.
We'll have live local coverage coming up next on KPBS.
You're watching KPBS.
A historic election night. Thank you for joining KPBS for our 2024 presidential election special. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and the results are coming in for closely watched races across the country and San Diego County. We have live team coverage. Andrew Bowen and Tanya Thorne are at local Democratic and Republican watch parties. Kitty Anastas is at the San Diego County Registrar of Voters, and John Carroll is here in the newsroom tracking the national contests. And we begin tonight with the presidential race. Former President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris have been locked in a tight race since President Joe Biden decided to end his campaign for a second term. And just a handful of swing states are expected to decide who is headed to the White House. And KPBS reporter John Carroll joins us from the newsroom with where things stand at this hour. John?
Well, Maya, I can start off by telling you that if you had to be in one campaign or the other, you'd probably want to be in Donald Trump's campaign tonight. The former president is doing rather well, but it is still not decided. Primarily, we're talking about the three so-called blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Although the Trump is leading in those states right now, but it is still too close to call. So we're keeping an eye on that. As you can see, as far as the Electoral College vote goes right now, Trump is up to 246 over Harris, and it takes 270 to win. Now you can see there that we still have the three so-called blue wall states there shaded pink because they're leaning Republican, but they have not yet been called. Out here in the West, you can see Arizona is shaded pink, leaning toward Trump. Nevada, they don't have enough results to shade it one way or the other right now. But it is looking very good for the former president. We will probably not have results, definitive results tonight when it comes to the presidential race. Nothing odd about that. Last time around in 2020, it took 4 days. So we will not probably have anything tonight. Earlier, just about 15, 20 minutes ago, representative of the vice president came out, Cedric Richmond, and said that she would not be speaking tonight. On the other hand, we understand that Donald Trump will be speaking tonight, and so we'll see what he has to say. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the other very important story, nationally speaking, and that is, of course, the balance of power in Washington. There you see the presidential numbers in the middle. On the Senate side there, to the right of your screen, Many news organizations now have called the Senate for the GOP, that they are going to retake control of the Senate. It just now remains to be seen by how much. Sherrod Brown in Ohio went down to Bernie Moreno. That was very unclear how that was going to go. And then we're still waiting on other states like Montana with John Tester. And then there are some others as well, Nevada. As far as the House goes, that's probably where the Democrats' best hopes lie tonight. And there is just not enough data to make a call one way or the other on that. So we are following all these races. I'm going to go back and continue to take in all the media I can from across the spectrum. And we'll be back at 10:30 approximately with another national update for you. Maya?
Thanks so much for that, John. And as you mentioned, we are following the Senate and House races, including one with the potential to tip the balance of power in Washington. First up, the U.S. Senate seat previously held by the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. The race was between Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff and Republican former professional baseball player Steve Garvey. Not long after polls closed here in California, Schiff was declared the winner at 59, almost 60% of the vote. Now, in the U.S. House of Representatives, the 49th District is one to watch. Incumbent Democrat Mike Levin is facing Republican challenger Matt Gunderson. Whether Levin hangs on to his seat or loses it to Gunderson could help tip the balance of power in the House to Democrats or Republicans. And here's how it is looking right now. It is looking like Mike Levin has a slim lead over Matt Gunderson with 54% of the votes. Two top leadership roles in the city of San Diego are on the ballot, so let's start with the mayoral race. Current San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is running for a second term against Larry Turner, who is a community relations officer with the San Diego Police Department. Gloria is a Democrat, while Turner has no party preference, and so far the results are showing that Todd Gloria is holding on to his seat with these early returns. Now on to another top race, which is the San Diego City Attorney. Current City Attorney Mara Elliott is terming out after 8 years in office. Two Democrats are in the running, Chief Deputy City Attorney Heather Ferbert and State Assembly Member Brian Mainshine. And Heather Ferbert has the lead so far with a little over 56% of the votes. And voters were asked whether the city of San Diego should raise the sales tax by 1% starting on April 2025. And it comes as the city faces a $200 million structural budget deficit, meaning regular ongoing costs are exceeding the actual revenue. And it is looking like voters are saying no to Measure E so far. We have more election results scrolling at the bottom of your screen. To help us break down the latest numbers and their national and local impacts, we turn to Public Matters reporter Amita Sharma and our guest panelists. Amita?
Thank you, Maya. I am here with an extraordinary panel of analysts: Scott Lewis, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Voice of San Diego State University political science professor Brian Adams, Laura Castaneda, Deputy Editor and Editorial Board Member at the San Diego Union Tribune. So, Brian, I want to start off with the state of the presidential race. As you just heard from our reporter John Carroll, Vice President Kamala Harris has 210 delegates. Former President Donald Trump is at 246. The Democrats are waiting for those three blue wall states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. What are her chances?
She still has a path to victory. It's a fairly narrow path. Trump is outperforming the polls. So all the polls, the battleground states, had them within 1 percentage point. Trump seems to be doing a little bit better in Georgia, North Carolina, which has already been called for Trump. He did it better than the polls suggested. But there's still a lot of votes to be counted, particularly in the large metropolitan areas in Philadelphia and some of the others as well. So we could still see some shift in the polls.
You know, Laura, one issue that had come up time and again was how close this presidential race was. All of the polls pretty much showed the two candidates neck and neck. Right now, what is leaping out at you in the closeness of this race?
Well, I think, you hit the nail on the head there. We all expected it to be close, but early on, the East Coast states started, the polls were closing. I mean, people couldn't vote anymore. So those votes that were trickling, closer to the West Coast or to the Midwest, you knew there was going to be a change, but he seemed to come out really out the gate quickly in the beginning. So I think that came as a little bit of a surprise. And also, you know, as you said, there's still a batch of mail-in votes that are still that we haven't seen the results of. So I think that we all expected it to be close. We knew that it was going to be close. I just did not expect to see that early rush in the beginning tonight.
So, Scott, if we are indeed looking at a potential second Trump term, what did voters say here in terms of if they wanted change, is he changed? Because he was president 4 years ago. So if there's a message to glean from these preliminary results, what might that message be?
I think the main message is that stuff is too expensive. We did a bunch of interviews today with voters at polling stations, and it was crazy. For every different topic on the ballot, they mentioned cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. We can do all of these studies about the economy being better, the stock market being better, compared to other countries, whatever, inflation. It seems that this result, if it does come out in favor of Trump, may have been baked into the process a year ago because people were so upset about that particular issue above all else. And that, you know, his promises, whether he's right or wrong about what he can deliver, resonated, and they just needed to send a message about how intolerable it had become.
But Vice President did promise, you know, tax credits to buy a house, tax credits for kids. Why didn't that resonate with voters, Laura?
You know what? I wish I had the answer, but I don't. I also cannot understand why people would think that the economy would be better under Trump, because it wasn't. And they saw that it wasn't. So I think they're unhappy. I think a lot of people are unhappy with the cost of living, but to think that he would provide a better situation after they saw what he did last time I just cannot understand that.
Brian, very quickly, I want to talk about Republicans. It looks like they have robustly defended control of the Senate. Any surprises here?
Well, I think a lot of predictions were they were going to win. It makes a big difference, though, if they have...
The margin, though.
Yeah, they won a couple of seats that were, it seems like most of the seats have been going their way. And that's really important, in part because there's likely to be a couple Supreme Court justices who retire during the next presidential term. And, of course, the Senate confirms those. So if you have a Trump presidency and Republicans control the Senate, that basically gives them, you know, a blank check to appoint whoever they want to the Supreme Court.
Turning very quickly to the 49th Congressional District race, there were some swings in polls in the last 2 weeks, but it looks like Democratic incumbent Mike Levin has a pretty decent lead over Republican challenger Matt Gunderson. Any surprises there?
No, I think we should wait and see how the future counts go. But the anti-Trump sentiment, at least in this sort of coastal world, is pretty strong. And, you know, Gunderson was a really good candidate, well-spoken, came out pro-choice, tried to really adapt to the district, and really struggled doing that.
Okay, we will come back for more analysis in a few minutes. Maya, back to you.
For that, Amita. And we are following a race that could tip the balance of power at the county level. District 3 of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors stretches along the coast from Carlsbad to Coronado. Democratic Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer has represented the district since 2020, and she is facing a challenge from Republican former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer, and she is so far showing a quite healthy lead on Faulconer with 56.7% of the votes, and Kevin Faulconer is at 43%. Lawson-Remer is one of 3 Democrats currently serving on the board, along with 2 Republicans. Now, Measure G would raise the sales tax rate across San Diego County by 0.5 percentage point to pay for transportation infrastructure. It does not include a sunset clause, which means that it would remain in effect until it is actually ended by voters. And voters tonight are saying no to Measure G. So far at 52.6% of the vote. The yeses are at 47.4%. Democrats in San Diego County gathered tonight to watch the results as they came in. KPBS reporter Andrew Bowen is live downtown. Andrew, how is it out there?
Oh, well, Maya, it is a packed house tonight. Those Democrats here watching very anxiously those national results, but Mayor Todd Gloria is actually speaking right now, so let's hear a bit of what he has having to say to the crowd.
Absolutely possible. A vision that puts people over profits, puts progress over politics, puts unity over division, hope over chaos. And thanks to all of you tonight, we are not turning San Diego around. We are going to move forward. My fellow San Diegans, we have so much more work ahead of us. The challenges our great city faces are very, very real. But I am more confident than ever that we have the ability to come together and tackle every single one of them. And we can do it, and we will do it together. Tonight, I want to close by imparting an important lesson that we've learned over the last number of weeks about our city. That San Diego belongs to the people, and we will not be sold off to the highest bidder. Our values, our votes, our city, and our voices cannot and will not be bought. And thanks to all of you, the voters of this city, I am confident that we will continue to move forward. Thank you all so very much for the trust, the support, and the belief that you've put into me and to what we can accomplish when we work together. I have a very simple message this evening. Let's get back to work. Let's fill those potholes. Let's house the homeless. Let's keep our city safe. And let's build more housing that working and middle-class people can afford in this great city. May God bless you all. May God bless San Diego.
Raucous crowd here. That was Mayor Todd Gloria speaking. He's currently leading close to the same results that he won with in 2020 in his first election. We'll be following that race, of course, as the evening continues, as well as the other races locally here in San Diego County. Back to you in the studio, Maya.
Thanks, Andrew. We appreciate it. And while San Diego County has trended more blue in the past few elections, Republicans are hoping to pick up more seats in the state legislature and in Congress. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne is live downtown where local Republicans are gathering tonight. Tanya.
Hi, Maya. We're here at the U.S. Grant Hotel in downtown San Diego at the Republican Watch Party, and you can see that there is lots of excitement, high energy, and anticipation as results trickle in on local, state, and national races. You can see that today the room has been filled with Republican supporters and candidates as those results start to roll in. Earlier today, we spoke to the chairman of the Republican Party of San Diego County, who mentioned some of the key issues on Republicans' minds: homelessness, crime, and immigration. He feels hopeful about Republicans coming in with solutions.
I think if Republicans get back in power, it's a huge thing for San Diego County. We're going to finally start solving problems rather than creating problems. Republicans believe in common sense solutions, and you're going to see all of our candidates, when they get into office, start solving problems with common sense again.
And we were expecting Kevin Faulconer to come here to the Republican Watch Party tonight, but he has yet to show up. We haven't seen him yet, but we will be here to bring you in some more results and updates as the night goes. Here at the U.S. Grant Hotel in downtown San Diego, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News. Back to you in the newsroom, Maya.
Thanks, Tanya. And voters across San Diego County were asked to decide on local tax measures this year. Several cities had taxes on the ballot, and some to institute new taxes, some to continue current ones. So let's take a look at the results so far, starting with the county's second largest city, Chula Vista. Measure P would extend Chula Vista's half-cent sales tax to pay for road repairs and other basic city services. And if approved, the tax would sunset in 2037. And so far, the numbers are showing the yeses are overwhelming at a little over 72% of the vote to extend the half-cent sales tax in Chula Vista. Moving on to East County and Measure J, it would extend El Cajon's half-cent sales tax, which is currently set to expire in 2028. Now, if approved, the tax would not sunset until April of 2049. And the yeses are in the lead right now at a little over 67% of the vote to extend the half-cent sales tax, Measure J, and El Cajon. And in North County, Measure X, voters were asked whether to extend Oceanside's half-cent sales tax to address homelessness, road repairs, modernize infrastructure, support youth programs, and also improve public safety. The sales tax is set to expire in April 2026, and the measure on this year's ballot would extend it for another 10 years. Measure X is showing the yeses overwhelming at almost 69% of the vote, which would extend the half-cent sales tax in Oceanside. The polls closed more than 2 hours ago, so the first batch of votes from around the county have now been tabulated. And KPBS reporter Katie Anastas is live at the Registrar of Voters office with what she knows. Katie.
Hi, Maya. The San Diego County Registrar of Voters is reporting a 43% voter turnout so far, and that number will go up as more ballots are processed. So far, more than 850,000 ballots have been counted so far. 92% were mail-in ballots, and the rest were cast at vote centers. Earlier tonight, I spoke to the registrar, and she says they'll estimate the number of outstanding ballots at the end of tonight.
I anticipate that we should be able to post those final unofficial election night results along with a projected outstanding number, hopefully by 2 a.m. and get that out there. Our next set of unofficial results will be posted by 6 p.m. on Thursday.
Mail-in ballots can come in here for the next 7 days as long as they're postmarked on or before Election Day. And the registrar says daily updates on results will continue until Saturday. Then more updates will come on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The county has until December 5th to certify the results. Live at the San Diego County Registrar of Voters, I'm Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
And a reminder that you can see more of the local election results at the bottom of your screen, and we're getting the latest numbers added to our website, kpbs.org. So let's check in now with Amita Sharma and our guest panelists for more analysis. Amita.
Thank you, Maya. And I am back with our great panel of analysts, Scott Lewis, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Voice of San Diego State University Political Science Professor Brian Adams, Laura Castaneda, Deputy Editor and Editorial Board Member at the San Diego Union-Tribune. I want to turn our attention, Brian, to the 75th Assembly District race, where former San Diego City Councilman Carl DeMaio is facing off with Lakeside Union School District trustee Andrew Hayes. Both are seeking to replace Assemblywoman Marie Waldron, who is termed out. Both of them are Republicans. They're both duking it out for the same group of voters. I know that preliminary results are in, and what they show right now is that DeMaio is in the lead. What's interesting about this race is that Hayes got labor union endorsements, and he even got Scott Peters, Democratic Congressman Scott Peters' endorsement. At least at this point, it doesn't seem to have given him an edge. Why?
Yeah, it's also, I was really surprised by these early results because Hayes also got the Republican Party endorsement. And you think that would matter, particularly in this district. Carl DeMaio is not liked among a lot of political actors in San Diego, both on the Republican side and on the Democratic side. But I think voters are in a mood where they want outsiders. And I think that helps DeMaio. He definitely is an outsider. Even though he's a former city council member, he still has that vibe of being an outsider. So I think that may be helping him, but I'm not quite sure what happened here. I was a little bit surprised. I was expecting Hayes to do better.
So Laura, DeMaio also had some campaign violation complaints filed against him. That may not have mattered in this race. If elected, he has promised to remake the California Republican Party. How steep a cliff does he have to climb?
I think that he is doing well simply because he has a little bit more name recognition. He's been around. He did a radio show. I'm not so sure that he's going to be able to deliver on those promises. He does, as you mentioned, have some enemies out there or people that don't think that highly of him. He's burned some bridges. So I think that is yet to be seen if he can deliver on those promises.
Scott, on to Proposition 5, which I know is a favorite of yours. I saved that question question for you. It would cut the 2/3 vote requirement to pass bonds if the money is spent on housing assistance or infrastructure. How much money could this potentially bring in if it passes?
Well, if you look at your ballot, you see a ton of school bonds, right? In Chula Vista, they're voting on 3 different school bonds. So they do that because they only need 55% of the vote. They raise property taxes and they borrow a bunch of money to pay or to build stuff. And this would allow cities to do that. So if this passed, you would see cities do this for years and years to come, all the time, for parks, for affordable housing, for these things. And that would be a big deal. And right now, I think it's the yes is down a little bit, but it might be one of those that could cross over. And again, if it passed, it would have significant impact on your ballot going forward. Yeah.
So if it does pass, how big of a panacea would it be for housing in this state?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they could borrow a bunch of money and build housing, but affordable housing, big A affordable housing, government subsidized, is going to be still a small portion of what's needed to make any difference in the housing supply crisis. I think that this might have bigger impact for infrastructure, for parks and such. Again, it would help cities raise property taxes a lot easier. Still 55%, which is hard, but it's, as the school bonds show, it's definitely more realistic.
Laura, let's chat briefly about Proposition 33. It would expand local government's reach in imposing rent control. There was some worry that this would affect new housing construction. How valid is that concern?
You know what? We said no on Prop 33 because we felt like it really makes the problem worse than better. And some economists were saying that landlords might not be able to make repairs on buildings and maintenance that really were needed. So we felt like it discourages new housing construction, and so that's why we said no on 33.
And Tony Atkins also opposes it.
Mm-hmm. So, sometimes I think when people hear rent control, they go back to housing, affordable housing, it's going to help me, but in this case, we didn't feel like it would.
Okay, turning our attention now to the San Diego mayoral race. It does look like incumbent Democrat Todd Gloria is going to sail to victory at this point. Your paper endorsed him, but they did so begrudgingly. Why?
I think we interviewed both candidates, and Todd Gloria is very sharp. He is, to the point. He knows the issues. But there may be some voters out there that felt like he still hasn't done enough on homeless, which, no matter what he does, it's not going to be enough because it is such a big issue. And there may be some people that were bothered by the fact that they think he might be aspiring to do something else besides worrying about being the mayor. So I think that might have bothered some voters. I wouldn't necessarily say it bothered us. We clearly felt like he deserved the endorsement. He knows the issues. But because of those other issues and the housing and homeless issues, that's where, we kind of felt that some voters would not be 100% behind him.
And Brian, his challenger, San Diego police officer Larry Turner, received a lot of money from the business community. Why didn't that help him unseat Gloria?
It's really tough to unseat an incumbent. It's really tough if you're a political newcomer and you don't have that name recognition. So Turner, took a very interesting tack of saying he's an independent, avoiding party labels, which is smart in San Diego, right? You don't want to be labeled as a Republican in the city. But so he tried to run as an independent, as an outsider, and that's a good strategy, but it's tough to pull off if voters don't know who you are. Voters are very hesitant to vote for somebody who they just don't know anything about, and I think that really hurt them.
Okay, we're going to leave it there momentarily. Maya, back to you.
Thanks so much for that, Amita, and we will check back in a little bit later. But let's take a look at a few more of the state propositions that we're keeping an eye on tonight. And that begins with Prop 3, which would reaffirm the right of same-sex couples to marry in a state constitutional amendment. It would remove outdated language from Proposition 8, which was passed by voters in 2008, that characterizes marriage as only between a man and a woman. And the poll lead is with the yeses at a little over 62%. 52% to reaffirm the right of same-sex couples to marry. Prop 6 would limit forced labor in state prisons. This constitutional amendment would end indentured servitude in state prisons, which is considered one of the last remnants of slavery. The California Black Legislative Caucus included the proposal in its reparations agenda. And so far, we're seeing a lead with the noes at 54.4% for Proposition 6. Prop 32 would raise the state minimum wage from $16 an hour to $18 an hour. The minimum wage for fast food workers was recently raised to $20 an hour, and healthcare workers now get $25 per hour. So in these early returns, we are seeing the noes with a slim lead at almost 52% of the vote. And finally, California voters have passed Prop 36, which increases penalties for theft and drug trafficking. And this measure partly rolls back Prop 47, approved by voters in 2014, that turned some felonies into misdemeanors. And we are seeing the yeses overwhelmingly up on the nose at 70.6% to increase penalties for theft and drug trafficking. And you can find all of the latest election results on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for staying with KPBS for our 2024 presidential election special. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and results are still coming in tonight, and we're staying on top of the closely watched races across the country and San Diego County. And we have live team coverage. Andrew Bowen and Tanya Thorne are at local Democratic and Republican watch parties. Katie Anastas is at the San Diego County Registrar of Voters, where ballot counting continues. And John Carroll is here in the newsroom tracking the national contests. Now for an update on the presidential race. Former President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris have been locked in a tight race since President Joe Biden decided to end his campaign for a second term. Just a handful of swing states are expected to decide who is headed to the White House. And KPBS reporter John Carroll joins us now from the newsroom with the latest. John.
Maya, not much new to report since we last saw you at the top of this hour. If you were in one of the campaigns, you'd probably want to be in the Donald Trump campaign tonight, as they are leading in the Electoral College vote. So let's go ahead and take a look at where the race stands at this hour with that vote. And as you can see, the former president is just 13 votes away from reaching the threshold of 270, whereas the vice president has 214. But we're still waiting for calls on the so-called blue wall states, which right now, frankly, are all leaning toward Trump. As you can see, those are the ones shaded in pink: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And then we have Nevada and Arizona also shaded in pink, which means leaning Republican. You can see the blue states pretty much expected that those were going to go to the vice president, and a whole lot of red on that map. Hopes to get Senate seats in Florida with Debbie Mucarsel-Powell running against forgetting his name, Smith. That did not work. Rick Scott, excuse me, that did not work out. And also in Texas, there was hope that Colin Allred could take it away from Ted Cruz, but that has not panned out either. And so we now stand with the Senate by almost all the major news organizations, including the Associated Press and NPR that we listen to, have now called the Senate to go to Republican control. But there's still the House to be decided, and likely we won't know the results of which way the House is going to go for quite some time. Of course, if the House goes to Democratic hands, that's going to lead to a lot of log jams in government coming up. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. So that's where we stand right now. Earlier, a representative from the Harris campaign came out, former Congressman Cedric Richmond, and thanked all the people that were waiting there at Howard, I believe it was, University, excuse me if I got that wrong, where the Harris fans were looking to hold a big celebration tonight. He said she would not be coming out to talk to people, that they would hear from her tomorrow morning. On the other hand, we understand Donald Trump is making his way to the convention center in Palm Beach, Florida, where he will be speaking. And of course, we'll follow all of it for you, and we'll let you know on kpbs.org. That's the best place to go to get up-to-the-minute coverage. Maya, I'll throw it back to you.
John, we appreciate you standing by. We're following Senate and House races, including one with the potential to tip the balance of power in Washington. First up, the U.S. Senate seat previously held by the late Senator Dianne Feinstein. The race was between Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff and Republican former professional baseball player Steve Garvey. And not long after polls closed here in California, Schiff was declared the winner. He is holding 59.6% of the votes. In the U.S. House of Representatives, the 49th district is one to watch. Incumbent Democrat Mike Levin is facing Republican challenger Matt Gunderson. And whether Levin hangs on to his seat or loses it to Gunderson could help tip the balance of power in the House to Democrats or the Republicans. And we are seeing Mike Levin holding an edge at 54.2% of the vote. Levin had this to say from his election night party at Hilton San Diego Del Mar just after the first poll numbers came in.
Thanks to the work you put in and based on everything we know about the outstanding vote, we are confident that when all is said and done, we will prevail.
California's 49th congressional district stretches from southern Orange County down the coast into Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, Vista, and all the way into Del Mar. Two top leadership roles in the city of San Diego are on the ballot, so let's start with the mayoral race. Current San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is running for a second term against Larry Turner, a San Diego police officer, and the results are showing that Todd Gloria is holding a lead at 55.7% of the vote. And current city attorney Mara Elliott is terming out after 8 years in office. Two Democrats are in the running, Chief Deputy City Attorney Heather Furbert and State Assembly Member Brian Mainstein. And Heather Furbert is still maintaining a lead at 56.1% of the vote. And voters were asked whether the city of San Diego should raise the sales tax by 1% starting April 2025. It comes as the city faces a $200 million structural budget deficit, meaning regular ongoing costs are exceeding the revenue. And we are seeing Measure E is it looks like the no votes are at 51.3% and the yeses 48.7% to increase the sales tax by 1%. So to help break down the latest results and their national and local impacts, we're going to turn to Public Matters reporter Amita Sharma and our guest panelists. Amita?
Thank you, Maya. I'm joined by a stellar trio of analysts: Scott Lewis, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Voice of San Diego State University political science professor; Brian Adams, Laura Castaneda, Deputy Editor and Editorial Board Member at the San Diego Union Tribune. Scott, turning to you for some insight on the District 3 race between Democratic incumbent Tara Lawson-Remer and Republican challenger, former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer. Talk to me about why this was such a high-stakes, hard-fought race and drew in so much money.
A lot of Republicans around the state of California or business interests saw this as a big bellwether. Was this going to be the final or the opportunity for Republicans to finally get something done, to win an election that was where a lot was at stake in a district that leaned Democratic? And they poured millions into it, millions. You know, it was probably about $4 million, maybe $5 million, 3-to-1 for Kevin Faulconer. It would have at stake was the control of the Board of Supervisors with a lot of housing issues at stake, relations with unions, and you know, it didn't work. And it didn't work precisely because that district is heavily Democratic, is going to go heavily for Kamala Harris. And while the Republicans nationwide might be pretty excited right now, the Republicans in California are going to be in the wilderness if Donald Trump wins another 4 years, because the Democrats keep putting that tie to him around Republican candidates' necks here, and it sinks them. That's all she spent her money on opposing him, and the independents that supported her did, and it seems to have worked again.
And he hit her hard on homelessness. She hit him hard on homelessness. And then she hit him even harder on him being a Republican and aligned him with Trump. That was pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. There was countless billboards and ads and mailers that had that picture of him with Donald Trump. He refused to ever renounce his support for him. And, you know, again, as a Republican, that's really hard to do because you still need that chunk of Republicans that love Trump. But in a district like that, it's just not going to win. And I think, again, it's just proof that for at least the next few years, it's going to be very difficult for a Republican to make any gains in that sort of coastal area of San Diego County.
Brian, so it does look like San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is going to win the race tonight, but it always felt to me like it was harder than it should have been. Why do you think that is?
Well, voters are in a very sour mood. It's not a good year to be running as an incumbent, and the fact that Gloria was able to hold on to a seat and Tara Lawson-Remer was able to hold on to her seat tells you something, just to follow up what Scott was saying, tells you something about the weakness of the Republican Party in San Diego, right? I mean, these are seats that, you know, in previous election cycles would have been winnable for Republicans. And the fact is the Republican Party has fallen so out of favor among voters in San Diego that they can't pick those up. So I just think it's like really, Republicans are having a lot of difficulty in San Diego precisely because Donald Trump is leading the party nationally.
And Laura, Measure G would impose a county-wide sales tax, half-cent sales tax to fund transit-related projects like road repairs and expanding carpool lanes. This seems to be losing slightly at this point. How crucial is this money for San Diego County?
Well, if San Diego would do with the money what they said they were going to do with the money, everybody would want that. But we all know that San Diego has had issues, is having issues, and so there's a lot of mistrust there. We asked for commentaries pro and con on this issue, and Steve Voss, who is a board member of San Diego, told everybody don't vote for it. So there's a trust issue there. That's what I think.
And so there is another sales tax on the ballot in the city of San Diego. This would increase the sales tax by 1 percentage point. It's hard to tell right now where this is landing with voters. There's some accountability issues with this, and there's also an issue of really how much money it would raise and how far that would go in helping.
Well, remember what I said earlier, that the cost of living is at the top of everybody's mind. And so to ask them to literally raise the cost of living on their own by choice is a big step. But I think this is interesting. There are 11 sales tax measures across the county, including the San Diego one. San Diego, when they went out for a sales tax increase in 2016, the last time Trump was elected, they got 58% of the vote. They needed 2/3 because it was a specific one that the government put on the ballot. But they got 58%. For them to now be at like 47, 48, maybe 49% if they get up there is an extraordinary collapse of support and trust among the voters for the San Diego leadership and for the investors who wanted to put this on the ballot. And I think it's a really interesting experiment now to look across the county and see which sales taxes did well and which did poorly as a barometer of trust in that agency. And I think, you know, the city of San Diego's one, the Measure E, it's at that point where, as we see counts come over the next few days, it might be able to cross that threshold to a win.
Thank you, Scott. We'll leave it there for now. Maya, back to you.
Thanks so much for that, Amita. So let's take a look at two competitive races in the California legislature, starting with State Assembly District 75, which represents inland San Diego County's suburbs, including Poway and Santee. Two Republicans are vying for the seat, and that is Carl DeMaio and Andrew Hayes. And so far in these early returns, Carl DeMaio is showing a healthy lead at 60.7% of the vote. And now for the 79th Assembly District, representing a large portion of South Central San Diego, as well as parts of La Mesa, Lemon Grove, and Chula Vista. The race here is between two Democrats, Colin Parent and Lachey Sharp Collins. And so far, it's a little hard to tell, but Lachey Sharp Collins has a lead of 52.4 percentage points. And San Diego Democrats and their supporters gathered downtown tonight to watch the election results and hear from candidates. KPBS reporter Andrew Bowen is live there right now. Andrew.
Well, Maya, the crowd is just in the last few minutes beginning to thin out. We had several elected officials cycle through with their campaigns, chanting their names, getting the crowd fired up, and making speeches on the podium here. Of course, everyone here is watching those national results with quite a bit of anxiety. Democrats are, I've heard the term mixed bag thrown around quite a bit this evening. But while those national results are looking rather iffy for Democrats at this point in time, the local results here are looking quite good for Democrats. Of course, as we've heard our panelists discussing, the race between Tara Lawson-Remer and Kevin Faulconer is certainly one that we're watching very closely for County Supervisor District 3. This is, of course, the race that will determine whether Democrats with Tara Lawson-Remer will retain their majority on the Board of Supervisors. Lawson-Remer spoke to the crowd just earlier this hour. Let's hear a bit of what she had to say.
We've knocked on more than 35,000 doors. Thank you. But more than anything, we've just been out in the community talking to people about what's important to them and making sure that we can show up for the next 4 years to keep fighting on the issues that matter, issues like homelessness and the cost of housing, and protecting our beaches and our coastlines, and continue to make real progress for working families here in San Diego County.
And Maya Lawson-Remer went on to say that she still thinks her race is too close to call, at least at this point in time. That being said, a victory for Lawson-Remer would not be all that surprising. Incumbents have historically fared fairly well when they've run for re-election on the County Board of Supervisors. And as we have seen the Trump brand moving the Republican Party further to the right, that has led to a bluing of San Diego County, if you will. And it appears that things are looking rather good for Democrats here in San Diego County tonight. Back to you in the studio, Maya.
Thanks, Andrew. Now to the other side. California is a key battleground for congressional races where Republicans are looking to flip blue seats, and one of those seats is in San Diego County. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne is live downtown where local Republicans are gathering tonight. Tanya, what can you tell us?
Maya, we're still here at the U.S. Grand Hotel in downtown San Diego for the Republican Watch Party, and it has literally turned into a watch party. You can see behind me that here supporters are watching those results very closely, especially as Trump holds a healthy lead over Harris here. And, you know, they would have liked to see a lot more local Republican representation in San Diego County, but there's still some big wins, like Proposition 36, which is set to get tougher on crime and has passed. Here's John Franklin, the mayor of Vista.
Well, I think the big victory tonight is Prop 36. We're celebrating the fact that the citizens of California want to restore law and order. They want it to be illegal to steal again. In my city of Vista, we've lost 2 grocery stores because of shoplifting. And management was very clear when they closed the doors for the last time that because of loss from shoplifting, they couldn't sustain their business anymore. Hundreds of local families lost their jobs, and thousands of families lost shopping opportunities in our community. We've got to stand up for our businesses and our jobs, and it's got to be illegal to steal again. People in California are ready for a change.
Only a couple of those races have been called, but Republicans are still holding on to some hope and not giving up. Franklin says, for example, that the passing of Prop 36 is only the beginning. And here you can see that Republican supporters are waiting for Donald Trump to speak to them, and they're watching those results very closely, and we'll be giving you more live updates. I'll be here at the U.S. Grant Hotel, and you can find more of our coverage on kpbs.org. Live from the U.S. Grant Hotel, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And voters across San Diego County were asked to decide on local tax measures this year. Several cities had taxes on the ballot, some to institute new taxes and some to continue some current ones. So let's take a look at the results tonight so far, starting with the county's second largest city, Chula Vista. Measure P would extend Chula Vista's half-cent sales tax to pay for road repairs and other basic city services. If approved, the tax would sunset in the year 2037. And we are seeing so far with these returns 72% yes votes, 28% no's. Moving on to the East County and Measure J, it would extend El Cajon's half-cent sales tax, which is currently set to expire in 2028. And if approved, the tax would not sunset until April of 2049. Measure J is finding a lead with the yeses at 67.3% to extend the half-cent sales tax in El Cajon. And North County, Measure X, voters were asked whether to extend Oceanside's half-cent sales tax to address homelessness, road repairs, modernize infrastructure, support youth programs, and improve public safety. The sales tax is set to expire in April 2026, and the measure on this year's ballot would extend it for another 10 years. Oceanside is saying yes so far at 68.7% of the vote to extend the half-cent sales tax. Polls are closed, and the first batch of votes from around the county have now been tabulated. And we are going to check back in with KPBS reporter Katie Anastas live at the Registrar of Voters office with what we know so far. Katie?
Hi, Maya. Nearly 860,000 ballots have been processed so far tonight. That's about a 43% and change turnout for San Diego County, and that number continues to go up as more ballots are processed. Mail-in ballots, of course, can continue to come in for the next 7 days. As long as they're postmarked on or before Election Day, they'll still get counted. And earlier tonight, I spoke to the registrar, and she says they'll estimate the number. Earlier tonight, I spoke to the registrar, and she says they'll estimate the number of outstanding ballots at the end of the night. And she says that that number could be anywhere from 400 to 500,000 ballots. Now, the registrar says daily updates on results will continue starting on Thursday evening, then again until Saturday, and more updates to come on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The county has until December 5th to certify the election results. Back to you, Maya.
Thanks, Katie. Quite the process. And voters across California are determining the fate of 10 propositions. So let's take a look at a few that we're watching closely. Starting with Prop 3, which would reaffirm the right of same-sex couples to marry in a state constitutional amendment. It would remove outdated language from Proposition 8, which was passed by voters in 2008, that characterizes marriage as only between a man and a woman. And so far, the yeses are overwhelming at 62.6% of the vote for Proposition 3. Prop 6 would limit forced labor in state prisons. This constitutional amendment would end indentured servitude in state prisons, which is considered one of the last remnants of slavery. The California Black Legislative Caucus included the proposal in its reparations agenda. Proposition 6 is looking like a no so far, 54.4% of the vote no, 45.6% yes. Prop 32 would raise the state minimum wage from $16 per hour to $18 per hour. The minimum wage for fast food workers was recently raised to $20 an hour, and healthcare workers now get $25 an hour. Proposition 32 is hard to call, but 51.8% no's, 48.2% yes in these polls. Prop 33 would allow local governments to impose rent controls. This is the latest attempt to roll back a state law that generally prevents cities and counties from limiting rents in properties first occupied after February 1st, 1995. And the no's have a healthy lead at 62.4% of the votes, 37.6% for the yeses. And finally, California voters have passed Proposition 36, and this would increase penalties for theft and drug trafficking. This measure partly rolls back Prop 47, approved by voters in 2014, that turned some felonies into misdemeanors. And again, this proposition has passed at 70.5% of the vote. And you can find all of the local, state, and national election results on our website, kpbs.org, for a last look at where the top races stand tonight. So let's check in with Amita Sharma and our guest panelists. Amita.
Thank you, Maya. I'm here with Scott Lewis, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Voice of San Diego, and San Diego State University political science professor Brian Adams, Laura Castaneda, Deputy Editor and Editorial Board Member at the San Diego Union Tribune. I want to zip through some local races and then hit the presidential races. Scott, let's talk about the District 3 race. It does look like Tara Lawson-Remer on the Board of Supervisors will keep her seat. What is ahead for Republican Kevin Faulconer, her challenger?
Oh, boy. Well, he lost a race for governor, well, a recall effort for governor. He did very poorly in that one. I mean, I can't imagine he has any future in local politics. I mean, you never want to write somebody off. Maybe they've got something going, but if you can't win a county supervisor seat, it would take a big remake to come out in some other form.
And Laura, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, it looks like, will start a second term in office next year or later this year. What does success look like for him in his second term?
I think he's going to really have to make a difference in the homeless situation and affordable housing, find a way to make San Diegans happier. We receive so many letters to the editor and commentaries from people who are involved, not just in downtown anymore, but all parts of the city and county, and people want something done. San Diego is not the same San Diego that it used to be, and if that situation is not made better quickly, I think it could hurt his chances of doing anything bigger that he might want to do in the future.
And Brian, Democrats have to flip 4 seats to get control of the House. What are their chances?
They're looking pretty good right now. They did flip a seat in New York earlier in the evening. And there's a number of seats in California that they may flip, in Northern California, Central Valley. So it's probably too early to call any of those. But there's still a good chance that they could do that.
Okay, Scott, I think I know your answer to this question, but I'm going to pose the question anyway. I want to turn and talk about the presidential race. If President Trump gets another 4 years in the White House, and by another 4 years, I mean his last term ended in 2020, he would get a new term in 2025. How is it that a man who has been charged with inciting an insurrection, been convicted of 34 felonies, found liable for sexual assault, accused of taking national security documents home, and really demeaned so many different constituencies, women, people of color? How does he get another term in the White House?
I don't, obviously those narratives haven't set in for now it looks like he's going to win the popular vote for the majority of the country.
So that will be a first.
Right, in a long time for Republicans as well. I think that again, I believe this was, now if you look back on this with 2020 vision now in hindsight, that this was baked in about a year ago when the inflation issue became so clear. But now we have 3 big questions looking forward. What is he going to do about mass deportations, and who is that going to impact? And I think there's a lot of people who have been working and studying in this country who are going to be worried right now, and justifiably so. Tariffs, that's going to be a huge issue.
Which will raise the cost of goods.
What is he really going to do with that, and how soon? And then, this just broader question about the culture of this country and the discussions in this country, and listening and dealing with what he does every day and doesn't do every day. I think we've entered, a new period, and we're all going to have to brace and analyze it appropriately.
And so, Brian, many people have said, especially Democrats, that if Trump gets another term in office, he will be dangerous, and we are now on a road to autocracy, democracy ends. Is that hyperbole?
Well, it's unclear with how it's going to play out. There's a lot of different variables there, but certainly, Trump is not a big supporter of democracy, and he's made that fairly clear in a number of different ways. Part of it will depend on whether Democrats can control the House, because at least then they could block any legislative attempts that Trump makes.
But they can't block any new Supreme Court nominees.
Right, they wouldn't be, because that's only the Senate. Correct.
Okay, Trump has also threatened to jail his political opponents. Laura, is there a world in which you can conceive that happening?
You know what? With Trump, everything and anything is possible. Things that we never thought we would see have happened, and it's just unbelievable that in 2024 this is where we're at. It's unbelievable. So I am just going to be waiting and watching like everyone else, but I will tell you that nothing would surprise me.
Scott, there's going to be so much navel-gazing within the Democratic Party over the next several months, if not years, about why Vice President Kamala Harris lost to President Trump. And I know, again, the race hasn't been called yet. Just right now, what are some reasons you can come up with outside of the economic reasons, or are those the only reasons?
I think it's a big one. Obviously, I've talked about it several times, but I think what's interesting about how decisive this victory is that it doesn't matter who he picked for or who she picked for VP. We talked about the governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro. That wouldn't have made the difference. We talked about the issue of the war in Gaza, and appeasing people who were really concerned about that wouldn't have made the difference. There's all of these micro reasons that people pointed to, and it seems again that it was bigger things than that. It was the fear about immigration, whether justified or not, that he was raising. It was the economic issue, and it was just this concern with how things were going, and they wanted to change.
Okay, we've got to close it there. I want to thank all three of you for joining me at the analysis table today. Maya, back to you.
And I thank you and our guest panelists for their analysis. And thank you for joining us for this election night coverage. For the latest election results, check out our website, kpbs.org/voterhub, and watch Evening Edition tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Thank you for joining us on this historic election night. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Tomorrow at 8, explore the natural resilience and beauty of San Diego. Then the world of the subatomic realm and the quantum universe. And later, the life of late renowned photographer and historian Harry Crosby. That's tomorrow on KPBS.
It's such a magical place.
The abundance of life, absolutely extraordinary.